Hey, hey, hey. Hope everybody's doing good. Carl Bryan coming at you. I apologize. I'm a couple minutes late. And also, there may have been a slight amount of confusion, which is all my fault. But as of next week, guys, just an FYI, I'll repeat this at the end. But this call is getting moved to noon Pacific and 3 Eastern as of next week. So 3 hours earlier than it is now. So a little FYI. But anyways, while I get you guys here, a little bit of a skeleton crew today, but there's some more folks chiming in. Look at this. Oh, Bruce Parker's happy about the time change, it appears. If you got a question, guys, as you guys know, this is Q&A call. You guys provide the Q. I provide the A's. If you got a question for me, you can either raise your hand or you can plunk it in the box there, and I'll open you up. But for now, let's tell you what, let's open up Bruce. Bruce is self-muted. Got to unmute yourself, Bruce, if you want to say hello. Don't be shy. Don't be shy, my good friend. Bruce is a bit of a high-flying chiropractor from many moons ago. There he is, Bruce Parker. You're live. How goes it?
I was looking for the unmute button down bottom, like on Zoom. I forgot what's up here.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
There you go. You're good. You're good. What's happening in Bruce Parker's world?
Well, actually, 4 o'clock has always been kind of a challenge for me due to other meetings, and 12 o'clock's perfect. So that's why I said yay. I was happy about the time change. I've been I'm becoming a lot more of a student of the Profit Acceleration software right now. I've been going through it a couple times in the last few days, going through all the trainings and making sure I'm doing it right. And I got a guy that I'm going to be doing my first one with next week, him and his wife. So I'm looking at this as the way for me to build my business, live events into this 100K live event, 100K meet, and then into a PAS conversation, into a $5,000 a month client, or 100, or 1,000, one of the two.
And sorry, what was that? I missed that last part.
I said, or $997 a month, whatever is best.
Yeah. Bruce, I just wanted, just for everybody listening, I know, so again, Bruce, you got a lot of experience. You've been a super successful chiropractor for many years and also doing a lot of consulting, right? So $5,000 a month, you don't really bat an eyelid, right? No big deal. For some of the other guys with less experience, I want to encourage you. Like, we had a coach who he's a coach / consultant, right? And look, this guy's a seasoned sales guy, got a lot of passion, a lot of oomph, right? But he signed a client for $5,000 a month. And and again, I happen, I know him personally, yada, yada, yada. And I was just be a little bit cautious with that at $5,000 a month, because $5,000 a month means $60,000 a year. And you got to be able to deliver on that at a high level, right? And if you're starting out, do I encourage you to start at $5,000 a month? Quite frankly, it puts a lot of pressure on you. And then if you don't fulfill, you lose the client, your reputation could get a hit. And super importantly, the business owner takes a big punch in the forehead. We don't want to create that dynamic. So anyway, I just, hear that a lot. What should I start at? And, is the more, what do they say? The more they pay, the more committed they are, right? And it's like,
the more they pay attention.
Say again?
The more they pay, the more they pay attention.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a fine line there. No doubt $24,000 a year is enough for them to pay attention. Do you know what I mean? And you could have some back end loaded fees, or the higher fees could, at the at quarterly, you could start them at $2,000 a month, and then quarter two, it goes to $3,000. The next quarter, it goes up another $1,000, and then you could get the $5,000 down the track as an example. And then if it's not working and they're not crushing it, and they've got the divorce and they got the separation, him and his wife are fighting all the time. Do you know what I mean? You could take the hook out of his mouth and leave him at $2,000, and then everybody still wins. And it's that much easier for you to fulfill your agreement at $2,000. Anyways, I hope, Bruce, this isn't me speaking to you. This is me speaking to everybody, because I know the kinds of questions that these guys have got in their head when they're first getting going.
And my
$5,000 a month is amazing. Just going to make sure we can deliver on it. That's all.
And my response to that is it's great information. And in reality, how I would my niche wouldn't ever always support 5 grand a month. It might support,
Yeah.
1,000 a month. So I look at the ROI. As long as
Yeah.
that cost of coaching is like a little bit of a doormat on the
Yeah. Exactly.
graph, then we're cool. So,
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. High five on that one. And also, I think worth mentioning is that scale, because if you want to scale, like franchising being my background, right? Like you guys will find that you'll very seldom see a successful franchised company with really high end fees, right? You will. An example that I would give you is it Chris Ruth or Ruth Chris? What's the name of that high end steakhouse in the U.S., Bruce? Do you know
Ruth
what I'm
Chris,
talking about?
Ruth Chris.
That's an example. That's a franchise, but you'll see that there's like 100th as many of those as there are McDonald's. So McDonald's scale, Subway scale, go into their pricing and you see it's low to mid, and then high end doesn't scale nearly as well. Therefore, if you're a coach listening and you're thinking you want to get 100 clients, not just 10, I'm going to tell you that you'll have significantly more success at $2 grand a month than you will at $5 grand a month. Just
Absolutely.
a little FYI, because why? 96% of businesses don't make it to $1 million. And in order to scale, you need numbers. So you're better to build a model that suits the 96% than the 4%. So I'll just get on the phone with a coach who, they'll tell me they only go to $10 million companies and above. And immediately my mind goes, A, it's not going to scale, and B, that's a really small, generally speaking, that's a pretty small market to be going to. And it's not that you can't go make 300 to 400 grand a year in that market, because you absolutely can, quite frankly, falling off a log, just a lot of work. But if you want to scale, that's going to be 10 clients, not 100. If you want to scale, be thinking $2 grand a month, not $5 grand a month as a coach. So a little bit off topic, but I think there's some relevance there. Do you agree with that? By the way, Bruce, would you agree with that? Any feedback, any thoughts? Oh, he's going on. Bruce, come back to me there, buddy.
No, I
There he
absolutely
is.
agree with you. I just muted myself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, cool. That's all right.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think that quite honestly, you earn your right, to the higher fees. Once for me, in my experience, when I first started out, I had to sit there and come in, at whatever all the other guys doing the same thing were charging, and I didn't start charging more until I had a track record. And
Yeah,
and, and
exactly.
I only got as high as
Love it.
24,000 a year too, but I had
Yep.
60 clients.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, I love it. And that, Bruce, and thanks for clarifying. And again, I've done a number of these. We obviously do 2 of these a week. And I know like Dave McKenzie, and he's here. He closes, like he does $5 grand a month, 60 grand a year clients, and he does that pretty comfortably. But again, Dave's got a lot of experience. So you just, because then the question is, oh wow, so should I be charging $5 grand a month? And just maybe is the answer. Just make sure that you're super comfortable. But if you're there and you're thinking, I'd like to be $5 grand a month, but I don't feel like I'm quite ready, but I got a red hot, a big company on the line and they can afford $5 grand a month, do what I said, do $2 grand a month until the first quarter. And then your retainer goes to $3 grand. And then the next quarter it goes to 4, and then get to 5 as your retainer. Do it that way. And then if they're not having the success, you can always leave them at 2, right? Simple. Anyways, and again, guys, I need some questions here. Portia, hang on, let me open you up. She is self-muted. Put up her hand and ask a question. Got to unmute yourself, my love. Portia. Okay, I can see you raising your hand. Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Portia, you're live.
Hi. Thank you so much for clarifying that, especially for new coaches, because I started getting on the phone yesterday, actually. And I have 4.
Hey, Portia, can I ask you, could you come closer to your microphone? We want to hear everything you're saying here.
Yes. Can you hear me?
A little closer, if possible.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. There we go. We're good.
Okay. So thank you so much for clarifying how much to charge in the beginning as a new coach, because I think myself, I was thinking, oh, 5,000 sounds good, but it's like, but I like how you do it gradually. So thank you for that.
Yeah. it actually comes back to, and again, without getting all like Mother Teresa on everybody, but like you really like, that's amazing that you can crush it, but it's not about you. You know what I mean? We're in as a you taking on the career as a coach, you are in service big time, right? Like you know what I mean? You couldn't get many more careers that are more service orientated. So the question is the client going to win and win that? Even if everything, here's the way I like to look at it. Even if everything goes wrong, is the client going to win? Right? And at $2,000 a month, that's comfortable. At $5,000 a month, that's not, you know what I mean? A little bit of motivation and moving them out of their own way and whatnot, and a little bit of life coaching. $5,000 a month. Generally speaking, guys, and please understand, this is kind of going different direction than I'd normally be talking, but this is gray, not black and white in any way. But I want you guys to all, you know, take this and design it to suit your own business, your own circumstances. But more to the point, the business owner that you're sitting in front of, or the one on the other end of the phone, their circumstances, right? So there you go, Portia. That's good. So tell us something else. What else do you got cooking?
I have a meeting with the business broker next week, and I have 3 floors the week after.
3 more the week after. How did you end that?
Floors. I have 3 floors the week after.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah. Good job. So you feeling comfortable? How's it all going so far? You feeling comfortable with the content, the delivery, and the process?
This is my first week on the phone. It's really kind of easy once you start talking to the person. I just ask questions and let them talk, and it's quite easy.
I love it. It's kind of magic that way, isn't it? It's almost like you're sitting on the couch. You're like the psychiatrist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love it. Just always come from a big place of you're here to help, right? They have problems, you provide solutions, and you go from there. So there we go. Awesome. All right, Portia, anything else for us? Any questions on the software?
No, I signed up for the role play, so I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Q Bananas. Good job. Kick some butt. Keep us posted, okay?
Yes, thank you.
All righty. And let's go down. Actually, you know who I'm going to open up? Tom Cavanaugh. I'm coming for you, buddy. Tom. Hey, Tom, you're live.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
It's been hours since we've spoken.
I know, right?
Have you missed me?
Absolutely.
Hey, guys, for anybody listening, 2 things. One, this is Tom Cavanaugh, who is live, and if you look him up, you're going to find that he is, in the NLP world, he is big news and a very talented guy. And then secondly, if you weren't, actually, let me just get what Tom and I were on a call with our certified guys. That's the invitation only program a little bit earlier, and he was delivering something. Put up your hand if you were on the Ask the Expert call for me last night. So if you were on the Ask the Expert call, put up your hand. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, not very many. Okay, there we go. Dave, Bob and Doug McKenzie was there. Beautiful. Okay, so look, most of you weren't, or you didn't raise your hands, but I got to tell you, this is something you could probably hear a few times, and I want to just go through what Tom and I went over, I don't know, a couple hours ago. So Tom, real quick, would you mind just reiterating, if you want a more in-depth overview of what he's about to describe, go to the Ask the Expert call from last night. But could you give us the 101, please?
Sure will. Happy to do that. So I was working with a client recently who has had some challenges paying the rent last year during the COVID restrictions because the government basically shut their business down. So I was looking for something else for them in their lease agreement. But you know, when you have your intention set to find help for a client, certain things happen to come your way. I came across a clause in the client's lease agreement titled force majeure, M-A-J-E-U-R-E, force majeure. It's a French term, and essentially, basically what it means is due to circumstances beyond your control, like an act of God or so forth, if you are unable to meet your obligations, those responsibilities can be waived or forgiven. So we took a look at what that meant for the client. It meant 3 months worth of rent at $36,000 total. I sat down and wrote out a letter to the client's landlord invoking the force majeure clause in their lease agreement, and the landlord responded back with a total forgiveness of the 3 months of back rent. That's the one-on-one, but Carl took it to a whole different level today, and I'd like to ask him to share that with you, because I think that this can help so many more people rather than just our coaching clients in that one aspect. There's a whole nother level of this that Carl brought it to that could probably just blow the doors off this and save our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. High five. And Tom, and by the way, guys, so Tom, because again, he's a freaking legend. If you go to the recording from last night, and that's the expert call with Adrian, you will see that he posted the letter. Is that correct? The letter that you just described, it's posted there, is it not?
Right. I did a generic version of the letter that I wrote, and Adrian posted it on the archives there.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you want that, there it is. So Tom and I were checking, this was a couple hours ago, and I went, oh my gosh. So I've franchising licensing, know it very well. It's my background. So I've written lots of agreements, and every time in those agreements, guess what goes in it? Force majeure, which again is an act of God. Like if something happens like a hurricane or, something out of their control, there's forgiveness built into the contract. And frankly, it's the fair thing to do, right? So you will find that in a whole bunch of contracts your clients have, they like this. Understand, if Tom didn't show up, that lady doesn't get forgiven the 36 grand. And by the way, through that process, Tom, you also found some other relief, correct? I mean, in a nutshell, just kind of give us what else was that? I can't quite remember.
Right. And so in a nutshell, the tenant's landlord had violated a specific clause called exclusive use clause in the tenant's lease agreement. So I went in there to research what that meant as far as the tenant was concerned, and I discovered that it could mean a huge amount of financial relief to the tenant. What we ended up doing was writing an additional letter to the landlord explaining the damages, that what their actions were, how it affected the tenant. And my client was able to get a $2,000 a month reduction in their lease payments, and we carried that out through the entire term of the 5-year lease that they have. And in addition to that, to prevent the landlord from recouping that money back through the annual rent increases, because they had 2 to 8% as a variance that they could raise the tenant's rent, I had them cap the rent increase for the other 5 years at no more than 2% per year. What that equated to was a total of $120,000 in savings for the client over the course of the next 5 years, which was critically important. And if you understand the language of our business is numbers, like Carl points out all the time, that $2,000 net reduction in the lease agreement.
Yep.
Actually, if you take a look at a net profit percentage of say 20%, that would represent the $10,000 in gross revenue for that client as basically what they're saying the landlords cost them. But they got the benefit of the $2,000 net reduction in the lease every month. So it's $120,000 savings over the course of 5 years.
Boom. So again, and guys, just what did Tom do? Like it was hard work, right? Like he's not a professional real estate contract guy. It's a horrible, you know what I mean? Like when Tom put in some hard work, did exactly what I described earlier. Like he's thinking to himself, how can I best serve this individual right now? And he starts reading some fine print and goes, oh my goodness, have you seen this? What might this mean? And you just heard what it meant. You know what I mean? Like 100. And by the way, again, like $36,000 of rent relief. Again, like that's like your annual fee, right, Tom? Like pretty close to. So like,
absolutely.
It's like the guy's free for the entire year for them. So anyway, so no doubt you got, so, okay. So I want you to think about that. In fact, this is what Tom said earlier. So Tom, just chime in if I'm explaining it not properly or expand upon it. But like you could reach out, and you know how we do the grant program. Well, surely, so basically, are you, they apply for the grant and are they eligible? Okay. And part of the eligibility of that is that you're going to review a couple of documents that they've got. Like what contracts do you have currently in place? Example, give a few, like a franchising agreement, a licensing agreement, a reselling agreement, which could also have minimums, which will have force majeure in them, and a real estate agreement, right? Well, you review those the way Tom just did a minute ago. You're looking for force majeure. You can't miss it because it's this crazy French word, right? That means act of whatever. It basically means act of God, right? And you guys go find it. So it's a way for you to reach out and basically give you the allowance to basically read these agreements and say, okay, let's look for relief. Let's look for relief. Let's look for relief. You cover $36,000 of fees straight up front. Holy smokes, right? Absolute gold. So with that and expanding upon it, what we talked about a couple hours ago is that what about a franchise agreement? What about a licensing agreement? Or what about a reseller agreement? You could also, not just their real estate agreement, but go to those because they will also most likely have force majeure. So you could go to those, review them the way that Tom did, and the release that you might be able to create for some business owners. And guess what? Some of those, I want you to picture this. You're going to go and follow through on what I just described, and there's going to be a couple who aren't going to pay you 5 cents, right? Guess what? You just gave these people the greatest gift of all time, which would be a little bit unethical in my opinion on their behalf. If you went and did all this work, found all this money, found all this relief, they exercised it, didn't pay you anything, but expect for that to happen once in a while. But if you do it 10 times, and if you're willing to pick up the phone and send out some messages, I can tell you, again, this one just fell on Tom's lap. And these guys would have never found this without him. Imagine how many clients you could get over the next 60 days. So what that means is the pandemic was your greatest gift. And we've been saying that since March last year, is that it's like halftime at the Super Bowl. You make some adjustments, you build some relationships that can really set you up for the next number of years in your community, in your city, in your state, et cetera. So anyway, so that's something we want you to be thinking about. Tom, anything that you want to expand upon, or did I just say what you were expecting and hoping I'd say?
You said exactly what I was hoping you would say, and I'd like to just add one more thing to it. Just because the potential business client doesn't have force majeure in their lease agreement doesn't prevent you from writing a letter on their behalf, invoking force majeure, and seeing what the landlords would do in response.
Yeah, why didn't I think of that, Tom? High five. You're exactly right. Like, at a minimum, reach out to ask the question, right? Because the landlord, the franchising, like all these different companies, of course, they want to get their fees and everything else, but, as if they're not going to be willing to offer a little bit of relief in the right situation. Whereas a lot of folks are just kind of sitting there grinning it and bearing it, taking, liens against their houses or, pulling their lines of credits and that sort of stuff to pay all these bills, just hoping to goodness that this pandemic goes away sometime soon. So yeah, I love it.
Can I add just one more thing, Carl?
Please do.
Okay, so guys and gals, this is an absolute door opener. If you couple this grant program for possible rent relief with the script that Adrian gave us on the COVID Relief Association grant program, it's an absolute door opener. There isn't a business client that isn't having trouble who wouldn't want to at least sit down and have you go through the lease to see if there's a potential relief, financial relief for them. And when you find it, whether it's in the lease or whether you're going to write the letter invoking force majeure, the only thing you have to say is, would you like my help with that?
Yeah.
Right? That's all we have to do, and that's what's going to put them in your pocket.
That is it, my man. I love it. I love it. High five. So I hope everybody's listening, and it's going to take a little bit of work. And the first person that, puts their hand up and you review their agreements, are you going to hit a home run? Are you going to do it perfect? Do you have to pretend like you know how to do this perfectly? The answer is no. Like, it's a journey, right? Just compete with yourself from yesterday. So anyways, very good. I love it. Tom, high five. Really appreciate that. That's absolute magic, buddy.
Thanks for having me on, Carl. Happy to contribute.
You bet, bud. So there you go, guys. Again, a little bit outside the box thinking. You'd be amazed at what you could come up with. Again, I would have never thought of that. I think that's just unbelievable. Dave McKenzie, Bob and Doug McKenzie. Where is he? If you don't know who Bob and Doug McKenzie are, you should look them up. They're famous, famous Canadians. And Dave McKenzie's got the perfect name to call him Bob and Doug. Yo, Dave. What's happening?
Well, just working away, kicking ass, taking names.
That's what we want to hear. What do you think of Tom's strategy there? What do you think of that?
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good thinking. Were you on last night? Did you hear the whole spiel?
Yeah, I was on last night.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. Well, see, it's 8 o'clock in the evening here. My wife works till 10, so there's nothing else to do. And so
Cool.
I had an appointment today. Like, I'm rushing home expecting a 4 o'clock call. It wasn't there.
I love it. Oh, well. Oh, good. So tell us, give us the good word. What's happening in Dave's world?
Well, I set another client up today, $5,000 a month. It was so easy, but anyway. But a question for you. Okay. I'm starting to get to capacity. And I think I'm a pretty good coach. One of my customers today, the guy I was working with this afternoon, he said, can't believe the ideas you come up with. So how am I going to bring that forward to bring other people onto my team and yet still bring those results? Because I'm a big idea guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is a good question. I got to tell you, if I haven't had this conversation 100 times, I've had it 10,000. This is what it looks like. So Dave, you're looking at a scale from 1 to 10, right? And you're at a 10 right now. And what you're trying to do is you're like, but if I step away because I'm such a great ideas guy, they're not going to be able to come up with those ideas and you're not going to be happy with that, right? So you're not going to go and recruit a 10. So what you've got to accept is that 3 years ago, you thought you were amazing, and you were amazing, quite frankly. That's how you got to where you're at today. But you've got to be accepting of the fact that you're not going to find Dave 10. You got to find Dave 7, which is a guy who is, what do we want to call it? Credible, got some experience, but the most important thing they need to have is some passion, right? That hunger. Remember, if I'm taking on a coaching client, what do I want? Look, I may want him in a specific niche and that sort of stuff, but way above that, give me a hungry guy. Give me a hungry athlete like a hockey player, and I can make him into a really good hockey player. Great? I don't know, because there's some, that's up to God, and his height and his strength and his, there's some God-given talent there. But you give me a hungry kid, and I can turn him into a hell of a hockey player real quick. Well, it's the same with a business owner. That's what separates Serena, Roger, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, and all the rest. It's hunger. Tom Brady's worth more money than, could you imagine the money that he's worth with his supermodel wife and everything else? Could you imagine, right? The guy is not worried about money. The guy is hungry, and he wanted to win that game. He wanted to win the game more than the rookies on Sunday. Sorry, bud. I'm going to cut you off. What's that?
He wasn't even scared to throw the Super Bowl trophy in the ocean when he threw it to Gronk on the other boat.
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty. I saw that. The old Tom Brady had a few beers. But most importantly, though, you're looking for hunger. So, Dave, it's no different than, and by the way, as I'm talking to Dave and you guys are listening to this, I want you to think of a conversation that you're going to have with your coaching clients, because the exact same thing. They're like, oh, I'm the ideas guy. So how am I going to find that? As soon as I step away from it and I bring somebody else in, I'm not going to be able to replicate that. And the answer is no, you're not. But you're not. That's not what you need to do. What you need to do is get yourself or themselves a 7 out of 10. And when you rewind and you go to 3 years ago, you thought you were amazing then. And Dave, you think you're amazing today. In 3 years from today, you're going to be way more amazing. So so as you sit here and talk to me today, you're only going to be a 7 compared to where you're going to be. Then it's really going to be impossible to duplicate yourself. So that's the way you got to look at it. You're looking for yourself at today a 10. So you're looking for a 6.5, 7 with hunger. And that's the person you take on. And will the first person work out? Maybe, maybe not. There's a saying in business, you get what you deserve. So be gentle with yourself and accept that the first one might not be perfect, but the third one will be better than you. But it's going to take them 48 months. So that's the way to look at that. I hear you.
Okay. And can it
That's the way.
Can it work in co-facilitation? Like if I bring on a second coach, third coach, fourth coach, can I still be involved with the customer, or like say, okay,
The answer is, what do you say? Absolutely. Like, could you imagine how badly they would want you? But this is, so what you got to do is what I'm doing right now. Like, you'll never, like, very seldom do you speak to me on a one-to-one, right? Whenever I speak, I'm always speaking in group. It's recorded and then it gets posted. So this is network effects, right? And then, by the way, the better coaches, the guys like yourself and Tom and everybody else that we bring on, like, think of what Tom just did for us and the 900 coaches last night. I just told you, I wouldn't have thought of that, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, when I heard it, I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's network effects, right? Think of what Tom just brought to the entire network yesterday. So therefore, you do, actually, I want to explain that better. Network effects, guys, is that every new client that comes on increases and betters the experience for the other clients. Okay, so I kind of just described that with Tom. So if you want a metaphor, and this is really good, and I'm not doing this I'm doing this for your client's benefit so that you can pass this on, because so I'm going to do a training in the future where it's going to be something to the effect of the restaurant knows they're never going to make $1 billion, but they don't know why. And I'm going to explain why, right? And I'm giving you 10% of that right now, okay? And it's 2 words, network effects. But basically, think of a phone, if you want a metaphor. If I had a phone and nobody else had a phone, how useful is the phone? And it could be a kick-butt iPhone 10 or 11 or 12 or wherever they're at. I got no idea. And it still would be useless because I'm the only guy who's got it, right? Well, if I've got a phone and Dave's got a phone, how useful is it? A little more, it's more useful, but it's really like a walkie-talkie, but it's not very functional. When everybody on the planet has got a phone, how functional is it? And it's like insanely, and every new person, like I could call Ethiopia, Nigeria, and wherever nowadays, like because they've all got phones, this makes it more powerful. So that's network effects. So think of us, the more, Tom and Dave and all the other high level coaches, the more of them we bring on, it helps us, improve the network, right? Another really good example is our Facebook group. Okay. So you could go and put a question on Facebook right now, and I wouldn't even need to log into Facebook. And by the time I looked at it, and hours from now, I would see 10 responses from the likes of Dave and Tom and everybody else. So do you see how the Facebook group, if I only had 10 people in the Facebook group, it's not very useful. If I have 100 people in the Facebook group, it's kind of useful. If I have 1,000 people in the Facebook group, which we've roughly got, it's super helpful, right? Like that's an example of network effects. And if you want to build a business, it's got a B and not an M. You need to have network effects working in your favor. You'll never get there. And when you do get there, you'll fall over because everybody would be bloody exhausted, but you wouldn't get there. So anyways, I hope
you could almost set it up
that's
as
how you do it.
A group of coaches, and as the so-called leader, do an Ask Expert call every week.
Say that again. I missed that.
You could almost have like a group of coaches, and then as the leader, who I think I'm good, but as I said, number 3 might be better, but have an Ask the Expert call every week.
Yeah. So this is so again, and the more of that we had, think of that as like a breakout calls, totally. But for you, Dave, importantly, I want to answer your question. You want to go put coaches on, and then how do you, experience that? So you could have all of your coaches bring all of their clients onto a weekly call that you participate on. You're not in control of everything. Like you're sitting here giving feedback for all of our clients. They'll be recorded and posted. Tom just did, Portia did, etc. Right? So doing that, you don't have to be the content. Let the clients be the content. And this is network effects, big time.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Like that. Does that make sense? So that's how you do it. Group calls. And remember, the bigger the group call, if you've got 100 people, is it a better call than if you have 6 people? And the answer's in a lot of ways, yes. Right. And of course, there's debates that we won't get into now for that one, but no doubt you could see with more people when you throw a question out, the feedback would improve with volume. This is a good thing. That's network effects. So I hope that's helpful. Cool bananas, Dave?
Cool bananas. Rock and roll.
Awesome, buddy. Okay, going to put you back on mute. You know I'm going to open up my bud. Pete Ambrosino, the guy with the coolest name here. Maybe Portia might be slightly cooler, but Pete Ambrosino. I wish my name was Pete Ambrosino. Pete, how's it going, buddy? You're live.
Oh, how are you, sir?
Doing great, bud. What's happening, man?
Just burning, busting, and building, man.
So I like to hear what's going on. Let's give us the good word, man. Inspire us.
Oh, inspire you. Boy, oh boy. I am spending more time than ever going out and giving right now. I've got a automotive shop that is way underperforming right now. We're going to run them through the PAS next week. Got that going on. I had a few accountant appointments this week. So a lot of follow-up going on there. Other than that, man, I'm here to be a student and learning from everyone. The value that Tom brought is phenomenal. It sparked a conversation today specifically with an accountant. So for her clients. But other than that, man, just going at it.
Awesome. So this sparked, sorry, I just want to hear, so Tom's call with us earlier that you were on, when you spoke to an accountant after that call, you started talking about that. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I brought it up in the context that if she has any clients that are struggling with that I would be happy to be a resource to help them.
Love it. Champion, man. I love it. And that's, sorry, broke it. What was that? Go again.
So the last piece, I wanted to ask quickly on the side. There was a Mr. O'Connor on the last call earlier, the licensing call.
Yeah.
Is that just real quickly, and it could just be a yes or no? Can anybody plug into his groups, or is that an exclusive thing?
You know what? I'm not sure what that is, to be honest with you. I'll do? Let's go back and forth by email, and I'll find out what to do. And I'm not sure if he's doing that privately. Like I think it's just his coaches, but it might be some others. So Fire me an email and I'll find out for you.
No worries. Thank you so much for all you guys do.
You bet, buddy. Thanks, man. I'm going to put you back on. Am I allowed to say anything about your old job, Pete, or no?
Yeah, I mean,
say no. If you're not comfortable, say no, man, and no one will. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my secret life. Let's put it that way.
Okay, got you. Good. So, okay, guys, I'm going to put Pete on mute. We appreciate having the boy here, but he's been a big news, that boy, bit of big news. But let's leave it at that. Maybe one day. All right, Billy Dixon. Billy Dixon, you are muted. Billy. There he is. Billy, you're live. Fabulous. What's happening?
Good. I don't really have a software question. Maybe I guess I missed Monday, but I just kind of had a mindset / motivation question. What do you do in the times when you kind of feel in the pits? I kind of been getting a little beat up on the phones lately.
Yep. Okay. You can't. Yes. Just remember. Okay. 3 words: state, story, strategy. That's it. Right. So strategy is you get on the phone, and what a better example when you do our live event, Business Coaching Mastery. Like if you come to Cancun, I can pretty much guarantee you within like a meter or so of me, there's going to be a sign that has those 3 words: state, story, strategy. And I'm going to say something to the effect of, if you wanted to, can you build a 7-figure coaching company, and is it possible? Right. And then I say, look, the answer is in these 3 words. Let me explain. And I'll explain them to you here, explain it for everybody, and this will cure your getting beat up problem. So first thing, somebody wants to lose weight. So what do? They go to the internet and they get a strategy. Let's call it keto, Jenny Craig, Oprah's got some new thing that she's promoting, Weight Watch, whatever it is, right? So we do that. That would be a strategy, right? And you do it. And if you took 7 seconds and your friend Google, you would have an excellent strategy that would absolutely work that would shave 10 pounds and maybe 50, depending upon your weight, right? 50 pounds off your body real quick. So why isn't everybody skinny is the question, right? Because who's overweight that doesn't want to lose some weight? And they all know where Google is, so why aren't they doing it? Number two, story, okay? So what they don't talk, so they talk about the strategy, they don't talk about the story. And the story is that I'm big boned, I don't have the time is a big one. My parents were overweight, so I'm overweight, or I've always been overweight. They basically got this story similar to a smoker, got the same story, right? So they got a story. So why does the strategy not work? Well, it's the story that they're telling themselves that they may or may not realize that they're telling themselves, but it's normally so deep, so ingrained. It's like a subconscious thing versus a conscious thing, right? So now we go one level deeper. So then it's like, okay, well, I changed the story. Will I be there? The answer is no. The next word is state. I talked about it earlier. What's the difference between Michael Jordan, Tom Brady? I mean, these guys got more money than they could ever spend. Serena Williams, you name it. Why do they keep showing up? Why is Serena Williams up at 5 o'clock this morning when she's got like, you know, a 1 to 2 year old? Why is she up hitting tennis balls? And she may or may not, I don't even know if she's at the Australian Open right now, right? But why does she do it? Why was Roger Federer doing it? Why was Andre Agassi doing it for years when, again, he had all kinds of money? And the answer is one word, and it's state. And state, ultimately, the state of hunger, by the way, will separate anybody from anybody in any profession. So it comes back to state. Now, if I were to give you a graph of 1 to 100, I want you to picture that strategy is 1%, story is 4%, okay, and then state is 95%, okay? The problem, or not so much the problem, the reality though is that the 1%, which is the strategy, drives the other 99. So if you got a bad strategy, like if I'm trying to, you know, learn how to play tennis and I'm holding the racket totally incorrectly, I can practice all I want. I'm probably not going to get anywhere, right? So you've got to have the right strategy, but state ultimately will dictate the, you know, the yes, no, the success or the lack of success for anything that you're going to do. So when you pick up the phone and you've just been told no 9 times, my question is, what is your state on the 10th? If what you've already said, we already know what it is, right? You're beaten up and you're thinking about the 9 instead of thinking that you're, you know, one step closer to your yes. So that's it. State, story, strategy. You've got to manage your state. And then the question, if you want, actually, what do you think of that? Make sense? State, story, strategy. Do you follow me?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, so you got to manage that state, and so you got to pick up the phone. And the real question is, and if you get my emails, you just go to the very bottom, and this is what I'm about to talk about, and that's it. You really got to care about them. Like the guy who will tell you to F off is the guy who needs you more than anybody. You call the guy who tells you to F off. You call him in 3 days and 7 days and 14 days. And one of the calls is you're like, you know, when you hang up at the end of the day, you're like, I had the most amazing conversation with the guy. That was unbelievable. That's why I do what I do. That call will happen with a guy who would tell you to F off 3 days prior or 3 days later. Because that's the guy who needs you the most. Because why is he telling people who are, like, if you cold call me right now, I'm not telling you to F off and screaming and yelling. I'm going, I'm not interested and I'm hanging up, right? But I'm not going to lay into you. I realize that you got a job to do. You're trying to, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's the way it is, right? Like, I'm not telling anybody to F off, right? I'm emotionally stable. The guy who's emotionally unstable is the guy that's going to tell you, you know, where to go, et cetera. But so again, just managing that state. What do you think? Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, it sounds, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. I got to go one, but now, okay. So now I go another 5 feet from where I was just standing. If we were in Cancun at Business Coaching Mastery, state, story, strategy. So then I get the question, how do I go next level on state? Because I want to learn to manage my own state. I do go up and I do go down and I do let, you know, circumstances outside of my own being, you know, dictate whether or not I'm happy, sad, and what have you. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you manage that state? How does Roger Federer, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, et cetera, do it? 3 words. So you go again. Remember, I went state, story, strategy. So now what I'm doing is I'm just going to state, and we're going to expand upon that. Okay. By the way, this is Tony Robbins 101. Shamelessly, if you go State Story Strategy, Tony Robbins, he will explain what I just described a minute ago much better than I could ever explain it. But I can comfortably tell you that I've done this. You know what I mean? Like I'm given a very good rundown of what Tony Robbins will do in a 4-day seminar. If you were to take his 4-day seminar and break it down to 3 words, I just gave them to you: State Story Strategy. Anyways, let me go deeper here, Billy. And this isn't just for you, Billy, obviously. This is for the benefit of everybody, or hopefully. 3 words: focus, meaning do. Okay, so that's where you go deeper on state. Focus, meaning do. So Tony Robbins will tell a story. If you look at an interview of Tony Robbins and it's longer than 10 minutes, he almost always tells you this: I was 11 years old. It was Thanksgiving. We weren't going to starve. There was a knock on the door. I opened up the door. There was a big guy handing over, a turkey and a bunch of stuff for Thanksgiving. And Tony Robbins' dad at the time is behind him. He looked at it. Focus, meaning do. What did he focus on? This is charity. What's the meaning? I'm a loser. What am I going to do? I'm going to leave my family. He did. And Tony Robbins never saw him again. Whether or not that story is exactly verbatim, but this is the way he tells it. And this is the way it went down, basically, right? I'm a loser. Focus, this is charity. Meaning is I'm a loser. What am I going to do? I'm going to leave my family. What did Tony Robbins do at 11 years old? He went, wow, strangers care, the focus was, wow, we're going to have a great dinner. The meaning is, wow, strangers care. What am I going to do? I'm going to pay this forward in the future. I don't know how. And if you know Tony Robbins' story that he has fed, I don't know, but falling off a log, it's 100 million families in roughly that situation that aren't necessarily going to starve, but there's not a Thanksgiving meal waiting for them. And this is what he's gone on to do, right? So with that being said, focus, meaning do. What are you focusing on? Like if the last guy hung up and he told you to F off, or if you're focusing on this is stupid, I'm never going to get anywhere. What's the meaning? I'm just wasting my time. What am I going to do? I'm going to stop calling. I'm going to stop trying this. You got to do the opposite. You got to focus on these people, especially the ones that are, telling me to F off, need me more than ever. What are you going to focus on? Go to the bottom of my emails: the separation, the divorces, the addiction issues, step mummy. So my own world, guys, my big brother committed suicide when I was 16 years old over a business failing. And then my brother dies. I'm 16. You can imagine how much fun that was, going through puberty with that. And then my mother drank herself to death right in front of me. So I'm 18 years old. You can go to bars in Canada at 18. I'm going to the bar. I'm coming home, and I'm not sure if my mom's going to be alive. And I would leave the bar every single time. And I hate to say it, I could literally relive it, unfortunately, like it was yesterday. And it's like I would leave the bar and my buddy would get in one cab, or we drop them off, or they get in one car and I'd go in the other. And I'd always think, I wish I was going in that car. I wish I wasn't. I don't know what I'm going home to. And I just wish I wasn't going home to it. Right. So again, a little bit of a challenge. So when you wonder, why do I do what I do? I can just tell you from my own world, those were my own experiences. And then it was step mummy who came in. My dad was like my best bud. We were ridiculously close. He marries this woman who I hated, which probably not a surprise the way I defined it, because I loved him so much. She took away my best friend. I wanted to kill her, quite frankly, and that's not an exaggeration. I never did, and I never would have, but that's the level of hatred that I had for her. I'm 16, 17, 18 years old. You could imagine how much fun that was. So Billy, and for everybody listening, like that's where I get my juice from. That's why this morning I was awake at 4:30 in the morning helping business owners. My question, Billy, and you don't have that story. You probably have something that you could draw from that you don't realize is there, that would be super powerful, because you don't become a coach by accident. But that's where I would encourage you to go. Like if I get told to F off 10 times, I just think of what I just described. My big brother committing suicide over a business failing, my mom drinking herself to death, and all the other crap that went with it, right? And stepmommy, stepdaddy, all this stuff that was just an absolute disaster for me. So anyway, so that focus, meaning do. How do you rev up state? That's how you do it right there. You've got to go like focus, meaning do. What are you focusing on? What's the meaning you're attaching to what you're focusing on? And then ultimately, what are you going to do? And instead of saying, this isn't going to go anywhere, I'm just going to get another no, I'm wasting my time, you got to manage that. And that's managing your state with those 3 words. Helpful. I know I just rattled off a lot in a short period of time. Helpful. Really?
That was pretty awesome. Thanks, Carl. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, that's it, man. So again, so tell me, I'm going to put you on the spot. Why are you doing this?
Wow, that is.
Why do you want to help business owners? What's that?
No, I said, wow, that is putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to definitely dig deep, but I think one of my earlier fascinations with marketing was hearing a friend of mine's story who he helped a tow truck driver who was living in his truck because he couldn't pay rent. And he started working with him for free, and he got the guy back on his feet. The guy got his apartment, and he was generating tow leads for him. So that was one of my earlier fascinations with marketing. Wow, we can do that. Generating leads for somebody and just change their lives.
Yeah.
And I kind of grew up in poverty myself, so that puts a little bit of gap.
Tell me about it. Like, why did you grow up? Like, tell me about that.
Well, my dad had some issues with drugs, so my mom kicked him out the house. So a lot of times I was pretty much growing up in a single parent home, and my mom was on government assistance for most of my time growing up. So I think back to that too. I definitely don't want my kids to grow up that way.
Yeah. What do you think drove your dad to do drugs?
Wow. He didn't have any really great examples. Like, his dad wasn't around.
Yeah.
And his older brothers, they were all pretty much on the streets.
Yeah. Do you think, if I'm just going to try, and I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be, but do you think it was a little bit of that he didn't feel like he was enough?
Yeah, I would say that's probably a big part of it.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, his career, 1 being it sucked and 10 it was amazing.
His career was, I would say, like 0.
Yeah. And what was his career, by the way?
At the time, he was working in a fish market.
Yeah. So if he was an entrepreneur, I bet he would have probably had a little bit of more self-worth, possibly.
Yeah, I would say definitely.
Yeah, and your mom might have had a little bit of respect for him.
Right.
And his kids might have had a little bit of respect for him. I think you might want to go down. You see where I'm going, no doubt. We've got to zip off here, but Billy, like, you got to understand this. You don't, and everybody listening too, you don't become a business coach. You don't become a coach. You don't go, it's like becoming a pastor. You think you become a pastor by accident? You don't think that that's like a calling above all else? Well, I really want, for you, like, you don't, it's the same. Maybe it's not quite the same level, but it's bloody close. It is for me personally, at least. I can tell you that. So I want you to think about that. And you saw what Billy and I just did. No doubt you saw where that went. Well, you saw how quickly it went right there, right? Like, you just don't do this by accident. And like, there is, Billy, what I think, and I could too happy to be wrong, is that you saw, like, you just described it with the experience with the tow truck, right? And the guy sleeping in his car reminded you of your dad. And then how he all of a sudden gained respect back and all that kind of stuff. Like, there was when you, like, entrepreneurship, when you really dissected it, and then you saw business coaching and you connected those 2 dots, there's a very real possibility that would happen is you went, oh my gosh, like, my dad didn't have any respect. He didn't feel like he was enough. And if he would have done something like this, I bet all of that would have changed, which would have changed my existence. And maybe we wouldn't have been rich. You don't care about money. You just wanted to have a dad who was there, who wasn't choosing drugs over you, right? And again, the reason why he did that with a zillion% certainty is that he didn't feel like he was enough, because that's why you go to those things, right? So I think that there's a line that you might not have drawn that I kind of see very clearly as a guy who's done this for 2 decades, that it's like, well, that's what happened. And then the tow truck driver just cements all of that for me. It's like, well, you saw that, and your dad was the guy in the truck, man. Follow?
Follow.
Yeah.
Carl, you gonna send me a bill now?
You feel like you're on the couch, dude? I know. Well, guys, I hope that's helpful, but I got to tell you guys, you don't become, you know what I mean? You just, like you said, it's just, if you put a pastor in front of me, I don't need to talk to him for longer than about 6 seconds to know that this is a guy who is driven by something significantly larger than himself, right? Well, I just want you guys to see coaching on roughly the same level. In fact, I'm going to go back to Tom, because you know what? Tom's got a lot of experience with this. I just want to, before we're going to go here, guys, we got 3 minutes, but Tom, I want to hear what you have to say about what we just, Tom, what do you think? Oh, hang on a sec. There he is.
I'm here.
Tom, did you hear that?
I heard everything. I was paying very close attention to it. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes just a simple shift can make a huge transformational difference in the future. So yeah. I understand exactly what he's talking about as far as, and how you mentioned that his dad made a conscious choice to choose one thing over what maybe possibly should have been his focus. But we have to remember that we all have our own situations and we deal with them on an individual basis. Sometimes when you are in the throes of being mentally frozen, you cannot think about or see anyone or anything outside of that. And that prevents you from living up to your responsibilities. The difference is you now have a choice on what you do with the rest of your life from this moment forward, now that someone has given you permission to do that. And that's what Carl just did. He just gave you basic permission to completely shift your focus into one of prosperity, responsibility, and accepting your role as to where you are, where you want to be. It goes back to Uber. Where are you now? Where do you want to be tomorrow?
Love it. Love it. Keep going. Love it.
Okay. So the idea is you now have accepted the responsibility for your own future. By doing that, now all of a sudden you're going to see things that weren't available to you yesterday, because now your mind is going to be open to receiving them. It's no different than what I was doing looking through that lease agreement. I was looking for one thing, but I was focused on helping my client, and other things that helped my client came along and presented themselves right in front of me. All you have to do now the rest of your life is keep your mind open, and the things you need will appear, and you now have the opportunity to take advantage of it. That's it.
Yeah, I love it. It's like gave him permission to start playing at a higher level. Is kind of what I see.
Exactly.
Right?
That's great wording.
And I love the way you use the Uber metaphor. You know that I love that, man. I use it all the time. There we go. Where are you at? Where do you want to go, man? $100 billion company. Okay, Tom, I'm going to put you back on mute. Let me just open up Billy one more time. So Billy, he's on. Billy,
I'm here.
What do you think, bud? Did we help?
Yeah, that was great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, like I said, man, I really want you. I think the guy in that truck was very symbolic in multiple ways for you, man. So really want you to think about that. Yeah, and again, it's a journey, man.
Thought about that.
It's a journey. You what?
I was saying I never thought about that, those connections.
Yeah. That's it, man. You don't do this by accident, man. So again, state how we started all of that. It was a little bit of a little rabbit hole, but it's not about, like it's, again, how do you're making phone calls and you drop into a lull. The guy in the truck is the guy in the truck is the guy you're calling. Are you going to give up? You know what I mean? And by the way, he's every freaking phone call. And he is, by the way, because believe me, I don't need to speak to the business owners that you're about to speak to know that there's some serious challenges and they need a little bit of help. They don't have an upsell. They don't have a downsell. They don't have a cross sell. They don't have a proper upfront offer. All I'm doing is I'm rattling off the 12 areas of the profit, the jumpstart, right? The profit jumpstart 12 in your software. Just go to those 12 If they have them in place, they're probably doing it at a pretty low level, and they're probably not tracking, and they could jack it up big time. But they pretty much don't have those in place. You just go straight to them. So there you go, folks. I hope that was helpful. Billy, specifically for you, buddy, I hope that was helpful. So everybody, and guys, reminder, next week, we are going 3 hours earlier than now. So 3 hours earlier. Okay, folks. So appreciate everybody. Appreciate you playing full out. Let me know if we can help in any way, but we will see you guys next Tuesday.